Good morning, Bill.
Good morning.
How are you?
Waking up.
Yeah. Good morning, Ann. How are you?
Exhausted. I just got back from the cabin, which has become like a harrowing journey. This is crazy.
Yeah, I have not seen this snow since that 1997.
Yeah. I remember one where we had like 3 feet, but this is just, you can hardly move through it. It's so deep.
It's over, yeah, and it's still snowing.
And yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it is still snowing. It had stopped for a little bit, but
It's supposed to stop at noon.
it better stop before then, or I'm going to have trees coming down everywhere.
They're coming down, let me tell you. They're
Oh,
coming down. We
yeah.
are cutting as quickly as we can cut to have them get up to. So
Yeah,
that,
they came up yesterday. I had a big one fall yesterday afternoon, and they came up and cut it up and stacked it by the wall. But there's it when looking at it coming down the hill, I don't know why it's still up there. There's branches just sagging everywhere.
yeah, yep, this is gonna take weeks to clean up from.
Oh, yeah, months. It's like the one we had a couple years ago that
Yeah,
Back in June, oh gosh, 20 years ago, when we got about 3 feet around June 1st.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was a doozy. This is going to rival it, though.
Yeah, this one, I haven't seen this much snow in a long time. It's
Me either.
crazy.
yeah, it's crazy. But
Well, it's supposed to stop at noon, if
Oh,
there's any.
yeah, hopefully it stops before then, but yeah, it better stop soon. I can barely get, I live in two different houses and I can barely get between them. It's like, it's just crazy.
Well, you can make a tunnel.
Well, I have a tunnel, but yeah, for the last 2 days, but it was deeper this morning than it was yesterday morning. So
Yeah, there's a lot more snow.
it did
yeah,
about 10 inches overnight.
yeah, yeah, I could tell when I looked out. It's like, oh my gosh, here we go again.
The joys of living in the mountains.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Morning.
Let's see, do we have, John is here, Eric. I know he's joining us, so we have a couple of minutes. Hi, John.
Good morning.
Hi, Aaron.
Hi.
Hi, Susan. Oh, Hiawatha, someone is in the, let's see who's in. Oh. Oh, Eric is in a different one. How did we get that?
Oops,
In a different meeting?
different meeting, yeah. All by himself.
Hey, Eric. How did this happen? Eric,
It looks like he's in a Teams meeting.
can you, Eric? I can't get him. Eric. Can you send him the link real quick, Aaron?
Yeah.
I'll try to put something in chat. Eric?
Yes. I can hear you.
Look at the chat. I just put a chat. We're sending you the link to the meeting. You're in a Teams meeting and it's a different meeting, so we're sending it to you right now. Okay. Aaron is sending it via email. I think.
Yeah.
I'll
Okay.
jump on that.
Okay. Give us a moment and Eric will be on. Hi, Susan, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you guys? It's nice to see all these faces again.
Yeah,
You
Yeah,
guys, our last,
It's
some of you since our last test. meeting.
been a while, yeah. There's Eric.
okay, there you are, Eric. Can you see it? Hear us? See us?
Yeah, yes, I can. Hey,
Awesome.
good morning,
Thank
everybody.
you. Okay, well, I'll do a quick kickoff. And Susan, are you taking the minutes?
Yes, I sure can.
Okay.
I was gonna ask if you want me to.
That
Yeah,
would be great. So we have Bill Kerner and Susan. Is Tweed here too, Susan?
she's just coming into the screen as we speak.
Great. Tweed, Aaron from planning, John Chavez, who is helping out the city right now with Dole's departure. And then Eric, who is with Workshop 40, who was our architect and helped us through the library project. And then Katie Helson, who is also helping, is going to start helping some with this project, who's managing the library project also. So that's who's in attendance today. It's 8:03. We'll start the meeting. As you know, this is a recorded meeting and it is a public meeting, so we may have others that join us. I don't see anybody at this time, but this will be posted on our website. So a couple of things that have occurred, as you know, we got some additional information a couple of months ago, so we took a moment, we stepped back, we gathered all the information. Aaron did a very intense timeline of everything that we've received and when. We went through that. And I reached out to Eric, who has done the library project and helped us really get that project to the over the finish line. And who at times told me, Denise, you've got to stop and you got to get this done. Also, it will not move forward, and was very honest. And I appreciate that. He caught many things that I did not know needed to be caught. So I appreciate Eric, and I've reached out to him to see if he would help us get this project back on track. So we're getting ready to sign a contract with him to do some final things to help us really get it over that finish line. And he will talk a little bit about that. But first, I want Aaron to talk about what we've been doing from a perspective of planning, because there was a lot that needed to also happen to keep the project moving forward. So Aaron, will you talk a little bit about what you've been doing and where we're at in that process?
Yeah, happy to. Let me just get my screen shared here. See if it's gonna do what I ask it to do. Okay. So this one is just where I outlining what next steps for the development applications are, as well as what we've currently been working on. So this is where we are in terms of what the legal definition is of this property boundaries. We've known in the past that it's we've always known that it's there's two parcels, and this was outlined in our pre-application meeting summary. So this is just kind of reiterating that. But so it's two parcels. We can also see that there's parcel line over here that's taking over a portion of the north west corner could be considered public right-of-way. So we were working with a planning consultant to redraw these lines, put it into one parcel, sort of make this match what we experience in terms of ownership and parcels. You can see on the right-hand side, the other thing that's required in terms of moving forward through these types of approvals is it be one whole platted lot. So the legal descriptions for both of these, both 10 and 487 here, are quite lengthy. So it's a lot of portions and a little bit of this and a little bit of that. They're also under the same contract. We were working on the Chase Bank parcel to clean up that as well. I think it had come up in the past that with how these things are drawn, there's a little fuzziness of where the Chase Bank boundary is versus the Hiawatha parcels are. So we're redrawing each of those so that they're consistent and clean, and will make the approval processes for both of those projects much simpler moving forward. So sort of running in conjunction with that, we are also working on rezoning Hiawatha Gardens to public facilities, since that is the function that it's now going to be performing for the city, and it's no longer appropriate for it to be a commercial property. Material change of appearance, all of these that aren't bolded are still applications that will come in the future. These two down here are those two that we could work on and move forward without having a final design. So whichever way things move, the rezoning and the replat is required. So right now, the consultants are preparing those application documents. Next, those application documents will go through a review by staff to confirm that they're meeting all of our planning standards and land use development code requirements. And once those are reviewed as per what is required for a rezoning, it will go to the Planning Commission for a review application, and then it will ultimately go to City Council as the decision-making body of a rezoning application. We're also going to push forward the replat as part of that application and review. Technically, that could be reviewed administratively by staff, but we feel it's better to have that reviewed holistically by Planning Commission and City Council and move those two applications forward together following that application track. So that is what I have for us. I'm working, our consultant is in the fact-finding stage on their end, gathering all of the different legal descriptions and legal documents that have been utilized in the past to describe these properties in question. And once they have that, then they'll start, we'll start sort of moving forward and scheduling out when we think those items will go to hearing. But we do not have dates currently of when we expect them to go to the Planning Commission. Right now, the earliest that would happen would be May. Any questions?
And I just want to say May is if everything works, right? It could go June, July, depending, as we know, Eric, as we know things occur, and it sometimes is delayed. So this is really important to keep the project moving. It will need to be done, so it will keep us from holding it up later on. We get it done ahead of schedule. So with that, any questions for Aaron? This is a big thing that we need. It would have been great if we would have had it done earlier, but we didn't. And so it's a great thing to be doing right now as we're looking at other options, as we're looking at other aspects of it. So with that, I will have Eric talk a little bit about what he sees as the next steps. I do want to first mention that we did meet, Roy and I can't remember, maybe Aaron and Hannah. We all met with the flood administrator at Pikes Peak Regional. And as you know, we do have an exemption. However, but I do want to mention, because once we met with them, Olson and the regional building, we have an exemption to build on a floodplain, but the building has to meet building standards, code standards. And that is the difference, because once we started meeting with the regional builder, they said, yes, you have the exemption and the floodplain administrator will sign off, but you still have to meet all standards for the building to be in a floodplain. So that means it has to be able to, if that means reinforcement or other things, that may be needed. So that was a very clear message that we received from them as we move forward. So with that, I will turn it over to Eric. We've been meeting with him for the last probably 3 or 4 months, really identifying the scope and what's the best path forward. And so Eric, please, I'll let you take over and we'll go from there.
Well, thanks for having me here, everybody. I'm really excited about being able to jump in and help keep this project moving forward. And feel free to jump in at any time and ask questions. I don't think there's a ton to talk about out the gate in terms of specific things that are moving forward, but more so going through what our process is going to look like, initial steps, and just to give you a rough idea of the types of things that we're looking to explore. And I think just to start out, it's our understanding that there's a preferred design that has been established for this project that lays out how this site is intended to operate and the functionality of the building. And so we don't have any intentions of coming in and altering that. In fact, our goal is to keep that as close as possible to what you've all seen and to my understanding have liked, and figure out how, given that the finished floor is now 2.1 feet below the 100-year floodplain, how or what this project needs to do to mitigate that, to keep it moving forward. And Denise really was spot on with, there is a variance for this project that allows the historic structure and the new structure to be built below the floodplain, but that doesn't relieve us from life safety items. So as part of our exploration, we're going to be looking at, what are the most feasible ways for us to, again, keep the project as is, as close as possible, but still make it through all of our review processes.
Eric, can I jump in real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
I do want to mention 2 things. Is we did make a argument that this has never flooded, and so why do we have to do this, right? We made that argument. That does not matter in code with buildings, because if it could flood and could cause an issue, then the safety and the structural engineer has to make sure they've met the standards. The second thing that we did look at, and that I think Eric is going to talk a little bit about, is FEMA and the floodplain and what that might look like to go back to FEMA. So with that, I'll go back to Eric.
Right. So, I'll just kind of touch on that point specifically first, Denise. So as this project moves forward, there's a really key document that we're going to be referencing. Architects are held up to the standard of care when moving projects forward, and when designing in a flood, even if there's a variance that exists, we still need to make sure that we are designing to the standard of care. And one of the main documents that's going to be influencing recommendations for how we could build within or rehabilitate within the floodplain is going to be the Secretary of Interior's standards, and specifically their guidelines on flood adaptation. And these are all documents that are available if anyone wanted to kind of dig into themselves on the internet, on the Secretary of Interior's website, and a quick search would bring it up pretty quickly. And so, Denise, you're mentioning that we have to meet all the standards of care and comply with the building codes. And so when it comes to designing within a floodplain, there's a few approaches that we're going to want to explore right off the bat. And it has to do with the 100-year floodplain and the drainage report and the floodplain mitigation strategy. And so, there's a potential path that exists that we might be able to work with FEMA to redraw the boundaries of the floodplain. If part of our initial research shows that that the 100-year floodplain does not, in fact, spill over the site. So, that would be I would say a best case scenario. And that's something that we're going to be working with our civil engineer to explore, as one of the very first steps. And so if that turns out to be the case, then, again, that'd be the best news possible, and the project could move forward kind of unimpeded. Now, that might not be the case for the whole site. It might be partially true. So then we are going to still need to potentially explore other mitigation strategies for how to get the building out of the floodplain if it's close. It's entirely possible that altering the floodway might be another strategy that we look into for getting the building out of the 100-year flood zone. Again, trying to just eliminate the finished floor being below the floodplain and trying to account for that water in some other way throughout the site, whether it's through regrading or altering of the floodway. And then there's also just other paths of if we find out that we can't alter the floodway or the floodplain, how we're going to structurally reinforce the building. Perhaps we are going to fill the crawl space with concrete to anchor the building down to prevent it from trying to float. And these are all strategies that are outlined within this Secretary of Interior's guidelines on the flood adaptation. But I think the important thing to note is that the civil, structural, and architectural are going to be coming together very early in this process and just talking through, a plethora of ideas of how or what is the most economical way to keep this project on track, and then ruling out things that won't be economically feasible or just because of any floodway design parameters might not be possible to begin with. But we still just need to do that exploration to understand what is even possible for having a minimal amount of mitigation needed. And I think the other thing I just wanted to talk on is just a very kind of preliminary schedule of what this process could potentially look like. This isn't finalized by any means yet, and it's still being discussed, but just knowing that we still need to work through some of the plaza design items. And I think we're still wanting to get input on that, but we're still also planning on meeting with the task force to give you an update on any preferred or most realistic solutions that we're planning on moving forward. We're also planning on giving the community another update once we better establish the strategy moving forward, as well as getting preliminary approval from or support rather from the Historic Preservation Commission, as well as City Council, just to again verify that this floodway strategy to help this project mitigate the potential flooding and water damage is what the city indeed is wanting us to move forward with. And I'm sure there could be plenty of questions from that, but feel free to let me know what you're all thinking.
Thoughts from anybody, questions? Again, we're still kind of looking at what the best option is, and it's going to take. The one thing that we are going to start immediately is a drainage report, which we absolutely need. And we have not had that done. So that will help with some of that information will help with some of what options we have also. And so as soon as I get Eric under contract, he's going to get that started and get that moving. And that's kind of the next step that we've got to get done to know what the next step is after that. So that is a really important part of this that we have to get done.
Yeah, and that's that's the kind of initial information and research that's going to get done to get a better idea of what is even potentially feasible in terms of reducing the floodway or not. So, you know, once again, the civil engineer is able to dig into that, we'll have a much better idea of the potential paths that we're going to explore in more depth.
Yes, Susan.
It could be it's because it's been so long I've forgotten, but what in your minds, Denise and Eric, are the design decisions still outstanding that we need to finalize?
Susan, I think I don't know if there's anything that needs to be finalized, but there, you know, that the patio design, we needed to go back to the public one more time and just say, here it is, or here's what we came up with. So, and then we have to take that to council for final approval. That will be once we do that last public meeting that you have mentioned. But we got to get a lot more information, data, before we can even do that. And I think with the project, we got a little ahead of designing before we had all the data to really make sure that what we were designing would work. And that's where we're at now, where it's taking a step back to get everything, confirming the information, seeing if there's a FEMA option, see what the drainage report reads, and then we'll be able to move to that next step.
Okay, great, thanks.
So Denise, maybe a follow-up on that it was hard to read that timeline, but it looked like you intended to go back to the public in May. Are you going to have enough time between, this is mid-March, to gather all that information that you've described?
And this is a very preliminary, right? As Eric said, this is very preliminary. This is if everything worked just right.
Okay.
I do anticipate it to be a little bit later because we've started a little bit later. We were trying to get Eric under contract the end of February, but we were still working the scope to make sure that the scope was really clear and we knew exactly what the deliverables were. So we've been working with Eric the last 2 or 3 weeks to flush that out. So we are, Eric, I don't have his contract signed until after this. I wanted to talk to you, to this team, and then we'll get the contract signed and we'll get started. So this is the best case scenario. Do I think that we're probably 1 to 2 months past this at this point? I do.
Okay.
Yeah, just because of the delay in starting. So as I mentioned, it's preliminary, and just as soon as we kind of are kind of given the go ahead to jump in and keep this moving forward, we would update this and have it available.
Question? Yeah, are we in the planning and execution, so to speak, are we considering integrating the bank property into the overall picture? And the reason I'm asking that is that from a flood standpoint, there appears to be a constriction right on the north side of the bank where the bank was built out. And it seems to me, at least, to be raising the flood level of the entire site by a certain amount, something that would have to be looked at. Now, I may be wrong on that, but that was just my first observation.
I don't think you're wrong on that. One of the things that we're going to be exploring is the potential of widening the floodway.
Okay.
And that kind of goes exactly to your excellent point, which is if we, the preliminary study would be, if we widen it, does that remove the building entirely from the floodplain?
Exactly.
So if it does, then it's potentially a very valuable avenue to explore. And so that's kind of, I would say that's kind of step 2. Step 1 is just seeing if remapping will solve it. Step 2 would be understanding site modifications that will further pull the building out of it. And then, step 3 would be exploring modifications to the building to mitigate the floodplain.
Okay, thank you.
That's a great point.
I do also, any other questions about this? I think Eric has a real clear path forward. We have very clear deliverables. And as soon as we we get him signed, we're gonna start that drainage report and get going. I can't say that we'll have an update with this team for a month or two. We're gonna, we need time, Eric needs time to pull everything together. As soon as he gets everything together, then I'll schedule another meeting with this team before we do a public meeting or go to council. So I don't have a date yet. I just ask for patience as we're trying to pull together data that we need. I will say I have ended the contract with BBH at this point, so we will not be working with BBH any longer. We're working with Eric at this time. We just are doing this one section here. Then once we get this done, then we'll do a contract that goes all the way through to the build. So, but right now we're just trying to get answers so we know what we're gonna do. I don't want to do a contract until we know some options that we have.
Yeah.
And Denise, that includes the restrooms.
Yes,
The whole site.
yeah,
Okay,
the restrooms. My goal is if I can get final design approved, construction drawings done, and through, and this is very aggressive, and through regional by December 31st and be able to start January 1st, that will be the optimal goal. We'll see if we can make that happen, and it's going to be a push, but that would be great so we can really start those restrooms next year.
thank you.
Don't hold me to that, but
No, yeah, that
We're
is
gonna push
aggressive,
hard.
I think.
it's very aggressive, but I've worked with Eric and I know Eric's work ethic and again, he really ensured that the library got over the finish line and at times just told me, Denise, you need to do this, period, else we're not gonna make it happen. And I appreciated that. Any other questions? Do you feel comfortable with the way that we're going? And I'll just go around and ask everybody. Bill, what are your thoughts? Are you comfortable?
Yes, I am. I think moving forward is the thing to do right now, for sure.
Anne, are you comfortable?
Yes, yeah, I agree. I think you've outlined the right steps and we just need to walk through the information we need.
Great. Susan and Tweed, your thoughts?
Yes, yes, good. That's more information this morning than we've had in forever and better organized. And I thank you.
Well, that's due to Eric and Aaron and the team. Again, this is not my expertise and they're the ones that are, so they get the credit. Susan, any thoughts?
No, it sounds good to me. I think we're in good hands, so I'm encouraged.
Great. Well, thank you for your time. We will get this contract signed with Eric and we will get moving forward and hopefully we will be meeting in the next couple of months, but I will keep you, as soon as we have information, we'll call another meeting. So,
Right.
and we are going to get this project over the finish line. It is a commitment that I've made and we will make it happen. So bear with us as we work through this.
Thank you.
Yep, sounds good. Thank you both. Thanks to all of you for all your work here.
You bet. Thank you. And Eric and Aaron, can you stay on for just a few minutes?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it will be recorded. So I'll just call you, Eric.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks.